Welcome everyone for today's reflections. Spiritual Christmas. Our central theme is Jesus' loving invitation. May you all feel welcome despite where we are, in London, in England, in Brazil, United States, or anywhere. This is our opportunity where we are gathering together in this spiritual psychosphere as learners as we all are. And to carry out our talk tonight, or reflections, we have the pleasure to have with us our dear friend from Brazil, Sônia Theodoro da Silva. For those who don't know Sônia, we will briefly present some information about her. Sônia Theodoro lives in São Paulo, Brazil. Engaged with Fundação André Luiz in São Paulo, Bachelor of Communication, post-graduated in Business Administration, graduated in English from the University of Cambridge, England, graduated in Philosophy, columnist of the Journal of Psychological Studies, London, UK. And in that way, we welcome you, Sônia, to the Spiritist Psychological Society in this format, because you are with us for quite some time in a different way, but feel welcome and embraced by all of us here. Before we hand it over to you, we would kindly invite everyone to embrace and engage in the initial harmonization process with a prayer. So let's start. And all of those who wish to close your eyes, please do so as we try now to look within. Look within and observe ourselves as immortal beings. Beings essentially of goodness, of light and love. We may even observe our inner world and calm our minds and hearts. As learners of the universal laws as we all are, ourselves and all of those in spirit who are also with us, in this spiritual ambient, prepared by those who anticipated us, the Enlightened Spirits. And we start by expressing our gratitude towards God, our Creator, our loving Father, merciful Father, for all the opportunities for us to learn and grow offered to us. Our gratitude for our Master Jesus, our guide, our brother, our dear friends of every moment. Our gratitude for the Enlightened Spirits, the benefactors, who always anticipate us and embrace us all, despite where we are. And united and embraced in these feelings of brotherhood, we start our reflections today. So be it. So Sônia, once more, feel welcome, embraced by all of us, not only for us, the Spiritism Psychological Society's members, but also all of those who are with us through the channels that we are broadcasting, YouTube, Facebook, and also through Web Rádio Fraternidade. Having said that, we hand it over to you.
Thank you, Evanise. First of all, I would like to thank Evanise Virtus and the Spiritist Psychological Society as well for the invitation to talk about Jesus and his message of consolation, love, and kindness. It's a pleasure for me to be with all of you, with everyone here. The life of Jesus, as well as his teachings, are and will always be models for our lives at any time, despite, but in fact, for this same the fact of having lived in a time of difficult relationships between people and their religions. However, when we talk about Jesus, we must set apart the religions, since these have hardly understand his objectives and purposes. In fact, Jesus actually came to teach us behaviors, procedures, and how to make decisions facing life's challenges. However, men little or never understand completely their teachings, as well as hardly practice their words and teachings as well today. Equally, the history of philosophy has demonstrated moments of sacrifice and courage in face of adversities demonstrated by philosophers of ancient times. We could start mentioning one of the martyrs of philosophy, sacrificed to the brutality of his time. I am referring to Boëthius, who is in his maximum work named The Consolation of Philosophy, inspired me to write my book, The Consolations of Spiritist Philosophy. Of course, other philosophers, mainly from the Roman Stoic school, like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, had also tragic lives, like the first one, forced to suicide by Nero, his former student. But could we reflect that pain and afflictions, as well as existential challenges nowadays, could be more intense than that in a distant past? It is logical to affirm that a plane of contrasts, as it is the planet Earth nowadays, is still situated on the level of tests and atonements, where, according to the Spiritist teachings, evil dominates over the desire for peace and concord between people and nations. And at that existential moment, social, political, and religious issues were not conceived of the tragedy in a much greater proportion and amplitude in the centuries that would follow. Therefore, the promised counselor, which institutionalized churches, arrogated the non-granted right to represent, simply through the fact that religions are human work, would clearly be proportional to the need for answers that a human being would search in the future. And in no time did the churches duly or proportionally comfort the pains and afflictions that the great majority of them had caused. If throughout the centuries the missionaries seek shelter or even the instruments for the exercise of solidarity on a great scale, without any doubt that the power exercised by them would guarantee physical protection against inexperienced societies at low moral and psychological levels. However, it will be required to arrive ethical values based on the gospel of Jesus to proceed to educate those people still precarious in posture and respect to the life and formation of societies. And this happened very little. Actually, the gospel of Jesus has been part of the representations of religious power, and his own image was inserted in the context of mythological narratives that gradually distracted him from humanity and creating an immeasurable space between that great spirit, a true example of behavior for all, and those who still restrict him today in the adorations of devotional worships or simply ignore him. Religious institutions caused a great social, moral, and psychological ill throughout history. However, they try today to remedy the past through initiatives that try to sustain life together with religious faith, through social assistance in distant places and societies. However, we cannot forget that despite these auspicious facts, Religions were and are still responsible today for the religious extremism that today acts like a tsunami, both in countries worldwide and mainly Middle East. If, in the ancient times and later, people were not able to fully understand their teachings, today we can fully understand Jesus' considerations and further understand the reasons why we would need a new message, a new revelation consisting of both acknowledgement and spirituality, but at the same time revealing in an intensive and absolutely rational way that human life is immortal, that nature is part of an entire complex as a net of life, as the scientist Fritjof Capra says in one book of he's author of a book named The Net of Life. The consoler promised by Jesus would complement his own examples of life and death. In particular, his death occurred under the most terrible sufferings, notwithstanding the fact that philosophy had searched for the truth over 2,600 years, and Jesus revealed it when he returned from death and teached us how to live so that suffering doesn't bring us down, nor afflictions take down us. And as a promise, as in fact he did it, it's present in a set of knowledge, valid as the synthesis of all the syntheses, because elaborated all over the centuries through theses and antitheses of the efforts that they dedicated themselves to the search for the truth wherever it could be. And today, the truth answers the claims for responses that has emerged from every part of the earth, without any doubt that the Spiritist philosophy will not respond explicitly and in detail to the deep causes of the pains and afflictions that are today raging around the world, that cause the cause of deaths on a large scale, as in natural tragedies, and even because of pandemic of coronavirus. We will never know exactly why those people gathered in a certain location, culture, date, and circumstances, and suffered from a similar death. What we really know is that there is a cause for everything, but what we also know and discomfort us, that real life is not complete here. Discomfort us on this vast and beautiful planet, that we are spirits and that we have journeyed in material life as travelers of the infinite, as the philosopher Plotinus said once, with the purpose of learning and consequential growth. We learn that the spirit doesn't suffer, it learns that matter does not evolve, but it is transformed. And for this, we need to recognize that our need to evolve is increasingly greater. Our journey has just begun. We cannot fix ourselves on the pains that affect us, but on the opportunities they have offered us. However, we recognize that nothing is conclusive at this time of transition. Once hope remains latent in our minds and hearts, we pass through the dark nights foreseed by all the wises of humanity, but ahead is Jesus, the wise of the wise, the Prince of Peace, lighting the way with the light of truth and the hope of life. Despite the great teachings of philosophy as a whole, The pedagogical contents of Jesus of Nazareth's words left us the greatest heritage of all times. Life survives death, and love was the path with ourselves, and added solidarity and fraternity to achieve the fullness of existence. Our faith, when added to the knowledge and exercise of the virtues, need to exercise reasoning and discernment about everything surrounding us and respect our individual and collective existence. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, wrote by Allan Kardec, chapter 24, item 13, named The Courage of Faith, we find a part of Matthew Gospel which says, "Whosoever therefore shall confess me before men, him will I confess also before my Father who is in heaven. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father who is in heaven." Matthew chapter 10, item 32 and 33. To have the courage of one's beliefs has always been held in great esteem by mankind. This is because there is merit in facing dangers, persecutions, contradictions, and even simple sarcasms, to which all those who openly proclaim their ideas are almost always exposed, especially when those ideas are not to the general linking. Here, the merit is in proportion to the circumstances and the importance of the result. There is always weakness in drawing back from the consequences entails by opinions and in denying them. But there are some cases in which this constitutes an act of cowardice, as great as the one committed by fleeing from the moment of battle. Jesus denounced this kind of cowardice from the particular point of view of his doctrine by saying that if anyone was ashamed of his words, then he too would be ashamed of them, that he would disown the person who repudiated him and would only acknowledge before the Father who is in heaven those who publicly acknowledge him. In other words, those who are afraid to confess themselves as disciples of truth are not worthy to be admitted into the kingdom of truth. In this way, they will lose the advantages of faith, because it is a selfish faith which they keep from themselves, hiding it for fear of the prejudice they may come to suffer in the world. Meanwhile, those who put truth above all material interests and openly proclaim it are working both for their own future and for that of others. This is how it will be for the followers of Spiritism, they say, because the doctrine they profess is nothing more than development and application of the gospel teachings. Jesus of Nazareth's words are also directed to them. They plant on earth what will be harvested in the spiritual world, and is there that they will gather all the fruits of their courage and weaknesses. The gospel of Jesus is full of wisdom, indicators ways to follow for our happiness, brings words of comfort and consolation. In these difficult days that we are going through, we need to follow Jesus' teachings. his balanced word of harmony and peace. Jesus never was as necessary as nowadays. On these days of pandemic and social uncomfort, Jesus invites us to carry our cross, which means that we all have existential challenges to overcome. But above all, it guarantees us that we are being helped by the superior and good spirits who have watched for us. So we are not alone. I repeat, we are not alone in these days. The love of Jesus is translated by all the circumstances that facilitate our life so that we can win these difficult days with the help of Jesus' teachings. The superior spirits emphasize, superior and good spirits emphasize in the gospel according to Spiritism, in the item named on the action of prayer, the importance of prayer for moral and health restoration, and the recommendations that we pray for each other as well, so that we can overcome our deep moral deficiencies without having to be awakened by a pain as intensive as the currently occurring on earth. Allan Kardec's words are very clear when he says in the book named Posthumal Works, in the chapter called Collective Atonements, when saying that all suffering will be abolished with the serious and radical change of our imperfections. Here the word radical comes from roots. In the book Heaven and Hell, from Allan Kardec words, in the chapter called The Fear of Death, Allan Kardec also emphasized that in addition to being part of the survival instinct, fear becomes harmful. Spiritism came to abolish this fear when it emphasized the teachings of Jesus and his own return from death. In the third part of the book, the problem of the being on destiny and pain, in the chapter Potency of the Soul, item, Leon Denis emphasized that pain is a law of balancing and education, that is a development and condition of progress for the human soul. Nevertheless, it's very difficult to recognize that suffering can be good for our moral evolution. Leon Denis affirms that human being trained to close himself in the narrow circle of individualism. However, for the hidden virtues to be shone in the light, pain is necessary. The Spiritist philosophy develops the logical reasoning of being through reason. Therefore, we must recognize that at this moment, pain has a role in awakening the feelings of altruism and cooperation. This does not mean that the human being always needs suffering to evolve, but that suffering is part of the awakening process of the spirit in this current evolutionary phase. The eternal being who stands into temptations of the wide doors and the achievements of the narrow ones, as Jesus said, may now reveal himself as the Son of the Supreme Divinity, journeying by the stars, transcending the matter he is prisoner in order to evolve and conquer himself. Spiritism is not a disciplinary matter to be closed within charismatic institutions or in universities submitted to rules and systems as it occurred with Christianity. Under the religious cloister throughout the Middle Ages, neither inaugurates a new philosophical school. The Spiritist philosophy develops interfaces with science as well as ethical and moral values, connecting with the sense of Jesus' teachings. The higher spirits present in all Kardec's work with the spirit of truth phalanx are rigid but careful at the same time. Their teachings are firm but simple, of that singleness that captivates, awareness, and makes the desire to grow in us, to return our eyes, attention, at last, to the true values. We are the prodigal children, and we are being received by the Mercy Father through the Spiritism that expands the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth. Allan Kardec said, Spiritism has a purpose. Without charity, there is no salvation, which means without charity, there cannot exist true Spiritists. Without any doubt that charity and solidarity helps to reduce the suffering of each and any person. The Spirit Emmanuel, in one of his books, sanctions and defines the word salvation, mentioned by Allan Kardec, not as a theological condition to individuals, but as elevation, purification, and interior sublimation, intensifying the Spirit's life to eternity. Emmanuel, yet emphasize the need for the love and knowledge partnerships in order to fool the human soul and complete his spiritual evolution. Understanding in order to believe, it became an imperious need. Here's the reason why, and faith. Here's the reason why blind faith no longer has dominion over him, over us. Allan Kardec says the following: Spiritism is like a savior anchor, like a light in the darkness of his soul. Take him out of the doubt, the horror, of the empty, not with an empty hope, but with irrecusible evidence of observation and facts. Spiritism restrain your faith, not just through a belief, but the understanding of the presented facts, he said. Allan Kardec still says, what many human beings don't have yet is the faith in the future, when Spiritism demonstrates the relationships between the invisible world with the visible world, which becomes solidarity. Thus, with Spiritism, everything becomes clearer. Death does not exist, and life is abundant in the two planes of existence. I would like to read for all of you this time some parts of the Gospel according to Spiritism, mainly concerning the chapter 6, named Christ the Consoler. I'm going to read for you, okay? The gentle yoke. This is a part of the Gospel according to Matthew. Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke unto you, and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 and 30, up to 30. Allan Kardec says this time, all sufferings such as miseries, deceptions, physical pain, and loss of loved ones will find consolation from faith in the future and for confidence in God's justice, all of which Christ came to teach in men. On the other hand, for those who expect nothing after this life or who simply doubt, afflictions will seem heavier to them, as they do not have any hope of mitigating their bitterness. This is what promised Jesus to say, come unto me who are fatigued, and I will give you rest. He says yet, meanwhile, the assistance and happiness promised to the afflicted depends on the conditions which is to be found in the law he taught. His yoke is the observance of this law, but the yoke is light and the law gentle because it only imposes love and charity as its obligations. The promised counselor. This is a part of the Gospel of John. John chapter 14, verses 15 up to 17 and 26. If we love me, my commandments, I will keep you my commandments, and I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever, even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not, neither knoweth him, but ye shall know him, for he dwelleth with you and shall be in you. But the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things, and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you. Gospel of John. Allan Kardec says, in this passage from John, Jesus promises another counselor, the Spirit of truth, which the world did not know because it was not sufficiently mature to be able to understand. This is the counselor sent by the Father to teach mankind all things and to call to mind all that Christ had said. Therefore, if this Spirit of truth was to come at a later date to teach these additional matters, then it was because Christ had not told everything. If the Spirit of truth was not come to remind us of what Christ had said, that is because it had been forgotten or not properly understood. Spiritism has come at the predicted time to fulfill Christ's promise. Presided over by the Spirit of truth, it calls men to observe the law and reveals all manner of things, so making understandable what Jesus said only in parable form at that time. Christ himself had given the warning, listen, all those who have ears to hear. Spiritism has come to open men's eyes and ears because it speaks without figuration or allegory. so lifting up the veil which had been intentionally cast upon certain mysteries. Finally, then, it has come to bring supreme consolation to the disinherited of this earth and to all who suffered by showing them the just cause of their suffering and the useful purpose of our pain. Christ said, pay attention, blessed are the afflicted, for they shall be consolated. Consoled. But how can anyone feel fortunate if they do not know why they suffer? Spiritism shows the cause of suffering to be in past existences and in the destiny of this planet on which man makes atonement for his past. It explains the object behind suffering by showing it as a salutary process which produces a cure and also as a means of purification, both of which guarantee future happiness. From this, it is possible for man to understand that he deserves all his sufferings and to believe that he is just. He also learns that his suffering and pain will help him to progress and so is able to accept it without complaining, just as a worker accepts the work which will guarantee his salary. Spiritism gives man an unshakable faith. This is important. In the future, unshakable faith in the future, so that he is no longer troubled by this consuming doubt within his soul. He is also enabled to see things from high, which makes the importance of his earthly vicissitudes disappear on the vast and splendid horizon which Spiritism sets before him. The prospect of the happiness which awaits, therefore, gives him patience, resignation, and courage to continue to the end of his path. In this manner, Spiritism realizes that what Jesus said of the promised Consoler, by bringing knowledge of those things which allow man to know where he came from, where he is going, and why he is on earth, so attracting mankind towards the true principles of God's law and offering consolation through faith and hope. There is a part in this chapter named The Advent of the Spirit of Truth. This message is signed by the Spirit of Truth in Paris in 1860. I'm going to read it for you. It's marvelous. It's a marvelous message. The Advent of the Spirit of Truth. He says, I have come, and as I came on I'm going to repeat the sentence, sorry. I have come as I came on another occasion to those misguided sons and daughters of Israel, to bring the truth and to dissipate the darkness. Hearken unto me, as my words in the past have done, so must Spiritism remind the incredulous that above them reigns the immutable truth, which is the existence of the good God, the great God, who causes the plants to germinate and the waves to rise up. As a reaper, I have gathered in sheaves the scattered goodness in the breasts of humanity, and said, Come unto me, all you who suffer. But man, with ungratefulness, has moved away from the straight and wide path which leads to the kingdom of my Father, and has followed the bleak pathways of impiety. My Father does not wish to annihilate the human race. He wants the living and the dead, that is to say, those who are dead according to the flesh, because death does not exist, to assist each other mutually, and listen no more to the voice of the prophets and apostles, but listen instead to those who no longer live upon earth and who proclaim. He said, "Pray and believe. Death is the resurrection, and life is the ordeal you seek, during which the virtues you have cultivated will grow and develop, even as the cedar tree. Those of you who are weak and know the obscurity of your own minds, do not deviate from the beacon which divine clemency has put into your hands, so as to enlighten your pathway and reconduct you, who are lost children, once again to the bosom of the Father. I am too much overcome with compassion for your miseries, and by your immense weakness, not to extend a helping hand to all those unhappily misguided, who, while looking up to heaven, fall into the pit of error. Believe, love, and meditate on these things which are revealed unto you. Do not mix the chaff with the good seed, nor the utopias with the truth. Spiritists, all of you, not only spiritists, but all of you, everyone, love one another. That is the first precept. Educate yourselves is the second. Within Christianity, you will find all the truth. The errors in which man has become enrooted are all of human origin. Here, from beyond the grave, where you thought there was nothing, voices clamor, brother and sisters, nothing perishes. Jesus Christ is the victor over all evil. You can be the victors over impiety. Suddenly, Allan Kardec works some words, and Allan Kardec put these words, who author is yet the Spirit of Truth. I'm going to read just a few parts. I have come to instruct and console the poor disinherited. I have come to tell them to raise up their resignation to the level of their trials and to weep, since pain was consecrated in the Garden of Olivers. But wait with patience, for the consoling angels will also come to them and dry their tears. Workers, plan your path. Recommence the following day the wearisome labor of the previous day. The work done by your hands furnishes the body with earthly bread. However, your souls are not forgotten. I, the divine gardener, cultivate them in the silence of your thoughts. When the time comes for repose and the thread of life slips through your fingers and your eyes are close to the light, you will feel the surging within and the germination of my precious seed. Nothing is lost in the kingdom of your Father. Your sweet and mysteries form the treasure that will make you rich in the superior spheres, where light substitutes the darkness, and where the most marked of you will perhaps become the most resplendent. In truth, I say unto you that those who bear their burdens and help their brothers and sisters are beloved to me. Instruct yourselves in the precious doctrine which dissipates the error of revolt and shows the sublime objects of human trials. As the wind sweeps the dust, so the breeze of spirits dissipates your resentment against the riches of the world, which are frequently very pitiable, since they are subject to more dangerous trials than yours. I am with you, and my apostle, he is referring to Allan Kardec, will instruct you. So you, who are kept captive by life, drink from the living spring of love, and be prepared to one day launch yourselves, free and happy, upon the bosom of He who created you so weak so that you might become perfect, who desires that you model your unpliable day in order to be the author of your own immortality. God consoles the humble and gives strength to the afflicted when they ask. His might covers the earth in every place. With each tear shed, he places a consoling remedy. Abnegation and resignation are a continuous prayer and contain profound teaching. Human wisdom resides in these two words. Would that all suffering spirits could understand this truth, instead of clamoring against their pain and moral suffering, which it behoves them to partake. So that these words for your motto, devotion and abnegation, and you will be strong as they resume all the obligation which charity and humility impose. The sentiment of fulfilled duty will give repose and resignation to your spirit. Then your heart will beat more steadily, your soul become more tranquil, and your body be protected against despondency. This is why the body feels that much weaker according to how profoundly the spirit is stricken. These are words of the Spirit of Truth from Havre in 1863. With all these consoler words, I finish my words, and I desire to you all the happiness and hope that we can expand in our days. I thank to Evanise Wirtz once more for this invitation. It is a pleasure for me, a great pleasure for me to be with all of you from England, from Scotland, from United States, all over the world. It's a pleasure for me.
Thank you very much indeed, Sônia. Your beautiful reflections referring to the Spirit of Truth, which really nourishes our souls and brings food for thought in the continuation of our learning process. Thank you very much indeed. And also thank you very much for those who are with us. I would kindly invite you for us to close our reflections with a prayer. Would that be okay, Sônia?
Okay, yes, pleasure for
And
me.
we all follow Sonia's thoughts so that we can also cooperate in this moment of prayer.
Jesus, our great brother, in these days of so many challenges, we humbly ask for strength. We ask you to transmit your love and kindness to all of us, wherever we can be, so that we can overcome these moments and evolve in your peace and in your mercy. May God and benefactor spirits, good spirits, bring all blessings to our countries, England, Brazil, United States, all Europe, all those who are watching us everywhere in the world. May the peace of Jesus descend upon all, bringing us a new year full of health, peace, and hope. Thank God.
Thank you very much, Sônia. So in that way, we are coming to the end of our studies today, but also at the same time inviting you all to carry on to be with us as our program continues. For tomorrow, we invite all to be with us, where we will have the presence. Let me put here the file. When we have the presence of our friend Cynthia Coutinho, which is a member of the Spiritist Psychological Society in London. She will be talking about to forgive is to love. It is a question. She will bring some reflections, and let's see if she brings some answers to us. So everyone is invited at 6 p.m. London time. Otherwise, for those who would like to join us tonight in our talk at 8 p.m. London time, with the presence of Larissa Chaves, with our talk in Portuguese with the team O Consolo da Mensagem de Jesus. May you all feel welcome for those who want to join us. Otherwise, Sônia, we express our gratitude and giving thanks for your time, for your presence, for your reflections that you brought to all of us. And we sincerely hope that we will have other opportunities in the future to be together once more, reflecting about Jesus' consoling message that we all still are in need to hear, to reflect, and to look at them once more. Thank you very much. Wishing you all the best for you, for your family, and all of those who are around you.
Thank you, Evanise, for you, of course, my beloved friend, and for all who are in the Spiritist Psychological Society. My love to each other.
Thank you very much indeed. And in that way, we say goodbye from London to everyone and hope to see you soon. Bye bye, Sônia, too. Take care.
Bye-bye.